Also the steps on how to graph inequalities. And I went through that with everyone. So who can tell me what the graph of an absolute value function is, always in the shape of? A V. I want all of you to look at your quizzes to number
2.
No. Number 6. And tell me how many of you have the shape of a V? There's 3.
I just didn't have it right, so.
Yeah. So you got that far, but this is what amazes me every year. You're not alone. Every year, and this is my 6th year, I tell everybody it's always in the shape of a V. If you look at your graph and it's not a V, it's wrong. And I ask everybody, what's absolute value always in the shape of? And everybody answers a V. And yet, when you graph the absolute value function, it's a line. Or it's a point. I'm trying to figure out where the disconnect is. So, let's just go through this question by question. Everybody gets to retake with no penalties. Okay, so what I want to do is go through every question, make sure everyone understands how to do it. The retake is all different than this. Sometimes my retakes are just the same but different order, but they are actually different questions on the retake. And then once we finish going through that, I'm going to hand out the review for the test. The test will still be Friday. Tomorrow I'll spend all period reviewing the review, so you guys need to have it turned in at the beginning of the period if you want 10% extra bonus points on the test. Everybody clear on that?
Yep.
Okay, and I would encourage you, 10%, everybody needs it. So if you're not doing your extra credit, I don't know how else to help you. Okay, number 1. What's the equation of a line? Give me it just in general form.
Y equals mx.
Okay, y equals mx plus b. So I have an x term and I have a constant term. If I look at all 4 of these, the first one is y equals 3 over x plus 1. X is in the numerator here, right? Not the denominator. This function is not a line. This function is a rational function, and it's going to have an asymptote, which you're going to learn about in the very last chapter of Algebra 2, but definitely not a line. X has to be in the numerator. Okay? Number 2, well, there's an x squared term. From Algebra 1, you guys should know, it would have been at the very end of Algebra 1, x squared terms are quadratic functions, and what shape are they in when you graph them? X squared terms. Have you heard the word parabola? So you didn't get to, I mean, if I asked Mr. Williams if you got to quadratics last year at the end of the year, you didn't in Algebra 1. You didn't learn how to factor and... Okay. An x squared term, though, there's no square here, is there?
Yes, there is 1.
Well, yeah, there's an exponent. It's 1, but it's not a 2.
True.
This is not a line. This is a parabola. Okay, we're looking for something that's going to give us this form when it's simplified. So let's look at letter C. 2y equals 2x minus 1 over 4. Well, if I solve for y, I divide by 2, right? Over 8. And I can simplify this. 1/4 x minus 1/8. Is that in this form?
Yes.
Yes. Letter C was the answer. Letter D, when I solve for y, x is in the denominator. Okay, in this form, x is in the numerator. So again, that letter D is not a line. The only one that's a line is C. Okay, this problem, I gave you a hint. And said rewrite it like this. Okay, the general form of an absolute value function is this, where hk is what? What's hk? as it relates to the absolute value function?
Okay.
It's the vertex. It's the vertex. We went through, you had web work on this. Everybody remember HK? If H is positive, it's going to be X minus H. If H is negative, it'll be X plus H. Okay? So to get this in that form, A is negative 1. So I can just write a negative. It's X minus 0, because there's no other number in there, plus 9. So my vertex happens to be 0, 9. What does the negative tell me? It's going to go down. The negative means it flips over. It's going to go down. So it needs to be one that's, the V is going down. So automatically I've ruled C and D out. And the vertex needs to start at 0, 9. There's only one that starts at 0, 9. Yeah?
I had B on this one.
Huh. Okay. And it goes down. I don't even need to worry about the shading because there's only one that has the right graph. But if I did need to worry about the shading, what could I do? Use a test point, 0, 0. So I put 0, 0 in. Is 0 less than or equal to, 0's here, just 9. Is 0 less than or equal to 9? Is that a true or false statement? True. 0 is less than 9.
Oh, I thought you meant.
Okay, so the point 0, 0 would be included in the shading, and it is. So letter B is correct. Number 3. Find the value of f of negative 9 and g of 4 if f of x equals negative 4x plus 8 and g of x equals 6x plus 25x to the negative 2. So what do I do? Yeah, I just plug in the numbers in the parentheses. Just a second, Catherine. Maybe. Where did yours go? Oh, I'm probably looking at it. Yes.
You're using hers. That's funny.
Okay, so I'm going to plug in negative 9 for x. And negative times a negative is a positive. 36 plus 8 is equal to 44. Let's see if that helps me narrow anything down. F of negative 9, there's only one answer. That f of negative 9 is equal to 44. So I don't even need to do any more. Letter A. Okay, number 4. What's the domain of the function in the graph? What does domain mean?
X.
The x values. So when I look at the first point, what's the x value of the first point? 6. What's the x value of the last point? 11. So it should be between 6 and 11, letter B. Range is the y. Domain is the x. Okay, number 5. Determine whether the relation shown in the graph is a function. All you had to do here is a vertical line test. Take a vertical line, go through the graph. If it passes more than one place, it is not a function. And this one is not, because it definitely passes more than one place. Okay, consider the function f equals x minus 2. Maybe. F equals x minus 2, absolute value. F of x Okay, so before I even start this problem, when I finish with my answer, what should the shape of the graph be? A V. Okay, so right away, if my graph is a line, I have done something wrong. Go back and fix it. Okay, if I'm looking at the general form, it should be absolute value. What is h in my equation? Negative 2, or just 2 actually, because it's x minus h, and so it's x minus h is 2. What is k? 0. What is a? 1. Okay, so to graph this, I start at the vertex, 2, 0. And the slope is 1. I go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, and then just mirror that on the other side. And I have my graph. And it makes sense because we learned if it's x minus 2, that means it shifted right. We did this on our Desmos. We practiced with different ones, and I said, look, it's strange. When it's a negative, it actually goes right, and when it's a positive, it goes left. And we watched the different graphs and how they worked, right? So the graph should shift right 2 units, and it does. Okay, and it's shaped up because this is positive 1. Okay. All right. In this section, there was a textbook check question that we went over that said, what is the domain of all absolute value functions? And what was the answer? All real numbers. All real numbers. Do you see? This goes forever in the x, both positive and negative directions. Eventually, this graph is going to encompass every possible x value. All real numbers. So the domain, this is letter B. Domain, you could have written negative infinity to infinity. You could have just said all real numbers. You could have used the symbol for all real numbers that we've learned. You could have done any of those and got credit. What's the range?
2. Negative 2.
Range is the y values. What's the smallest y value there is here? 0. And it goes to infinity. So the range would be, and it includes 0, to infinity. This one got me the number of people that missed letter C. Look at the function, and it's got the 2 lines on it, which tells us it's an absolute value function, right? Mm-hmm. So the answer is absolute value. Okay, next one. We're graphing inequalities. Okay, this is neither standard form or slope-intercept form. So I need to convert it to one or the other before I can start. So let's go ahead and do slope-intercept. Subtract 6. Negative 2y is less than 3x minus 6. Divide by negative 2. And anytime I divide by negative, I flip the sign. I divide 3 by negative 2, I get negative 3 halves. I divide negative 6 by negative 2, I get positive 3. So this is the equation that I'm going to graph. Okay, these are the steps, and we went through them before the quiz, but I'll go through them again. To do an inequality, you graph the line, and your graph should always be either solid or dashed, and it should always have shading. Those are the 2 things you have to add to inequality graphs. Hopefully this isn't the first time you've heard that. You have to decide if it's shaded or where the shading happens and if the line is solid or dashed. Okay? So, number one, I can tell right away it's going to be a dashed line,
Absolutely.
okay, because it's not an or equal to. And to graph in slope-intercept form, I start at the y-intercept, and I use the slope, down 3, right 2. And I'm going to connect them with a dashed line. Okay? Then I decide on where the shading happens. And to do that, we use a test point. The easiest test point is 0, 0, as long as it's not on the graph, on the line. And it's not, so I can use it. So I'm going to plug 0, 0 in. Is 0 greater than, this goes away because I'm multiplying by 0, 3. Is 0 greater than 3? No. So 0, 0 is not included in the shading, so it's got to be on the other side. You get half a point if you graphed it correctly. You get a quarter point if you dashed the line. And you get a quarter point if you shaded correctly. Okay. Next one. Y equals the absolute value of negative 2x. What's the shape of your graph? A V. So your graph should be in the shape of a V. Okay? Now, we didn't really talk about a negative in front on the inside, but if there's a negative in front on the inside, it's just positive, right? So this should be the same as this. Okay? And if you don't know how to put that into the form, all you need to do is just do like we learned how to graph when we first learned graphing. If x is 1 or x is 0, what's y? X is 0, what's y? 0. If x is 1, what's y? 2. If x is 2, what's y? 4. X is negative 1, what's y? Positive 2. And negative 2 is a positive 4. There's my v. And it is y is greater than, so I have to reconsider my line here. So it needs to be a dashed line. And now I have to figure out where to shade. Well, this is difficult because 0, 0 is on this graph, right? So I can't use that point.
Right.
I've got to pick a point that's not on the graph. So I'll just pick 1, 1. 1, 1's not on this graph. So if I put 1, 1 in, is 1 greater than, what's the absolute value of 2 times 1? Just 2. Is 1 greater than 2?
No.
No. So this point 1, 1 is not included. So it's everything on the inside that would be included.
Yeah.
Okay, you had a problem like this on WebWork, that you had to identify the domain and range of a set of numbers. So this just said graph the set of numbers. Well, all you've got to do for this is we go 2, 4. There's 1 point. 4, negative 2. 1, 3. And 0, 3. So there's the 4 numbers. You don't have to connect them. It doesn't say it's a line or continuous or anything. It just graph the points. So we did that. Then it says, state the domain and range. Well, the domain is 0, 1, 2, and 4. The x values. Just the x values of the points. The range is, we start at negative 2, and we go to 3 and 4. You don't have to repeat the 3. I didn't count off if you did, but you don't have to. 3's part of the range, and it's not the range twice. Okay. The last part was determine whether it's a function.
Yep.
Okay. So the vertical line test. If I take a vertical line through each of these points, do I pass more than one point? No. It's only one point. So it is a function. Number 10, scatter plot. I'm given really 4 points. The first one is 0 and 0.13. So it's really close to the origin. Next is 2, 2. Next is 3, 4. And the next is 5, 7.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5. So I'm just going to draw my oval. And I'm going to pick 2 points at the end and just draw my line through. Okay, so 1 point I could pick is 2, 1. Another one I could pick, I'll do this one, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just said, draw a scatter plot and line of fit. I did that. That's A. Describe the correlation. Is it positive or negative? Positive correlation. So increase is not the word I was looking for. This was out of the textbook. It's either positive correlation or negative correlation. We had that on a textbook check. Use 2 ordered pairs to write a prediction equation. So I just picked these 2. You could have picked any 2 that were on your line. This is the kind of problem I said not everybody's going to get exactly the same thing. So if I pick these 2 points, 5 minus 1 is 4. 4 minus 2 is 2, so my slope is 2. So I know it's going to be y equals 2x plus something. Well, to find b, I'm just going to take one of these points and put it back in. 1 equals 2 times 2 plus b. 1 equals 4 plus b. Subtract 4, b is equal to negative 3 for me. Some of you got negative 2. I didn't count it wrong as long as you got an equation and I could see how you got your equation. So then you use your equation to figure out when x is 4 what y is. 4 minus 3 for me, is that right? 4 minus 3, y is 1. That doesn't make sense. Oh, 8. 2 times 4 is 8, minus 3 is 5. So my answer would be, here's my equation, 2x minus 3, and my answer would have been 5. If your equation was 2x minus 2, your answer would have been 6. Okay? There wasn't a wrong or right answer for that one as long as you got your equation using 2 points like they asked, and you plugged 4 into your equation and got an answer. And I can follow your work. Okay, I had 2 people use a calculator and just plug it in using stat. I accepted their answer too. Theirs was more precise than mine, using it this way. They wrote their equation down from stat, got that, and then plugged their value of 4 in for x and solved it and got what the answer for y was. Okay, we did a bunch of web work, whole section on using stat, so you could have done that too. Okay, was there something new in the material than what we've been working on? I mean, I was amazed at how many people didn't remember that the graph of an absolute value function is a v. And after I gave you the steps on how to do inequalities right before the quiz, how few of you actually shaded and dashed your lines? Okay, my highest score was an 87.5 or 8.75. But everyone is going to retake. Okay, sooner the better. I'll probably put these grades in on Monday. So official eligibility will go in Tuesday. So if you get it done by Monday, then I can get whatever the new grade is in the grade book before they run eligibility. Okay?